Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 60s Project, where myself and I know how to speak. Russell Howell and I are going to be going through every movie that we can of the 1960s. And speaking of Rutger Hauer, Russell Howell, how are you?
Oh, good. You're just so tired from being exhausted from the two films that we have to cover, I think.
It's gotta be. And just to give some context, we're covering two movies this week for 60s. And let me just start off by saying, and I think Russell can echo me on this, in terms of quality, in terms of technical side, there's nothing wrong with these movies. It's just they're very difficult to discuss. We'll talk about why. But one of them is directed by a legendary filmmaker, Ingmar Bergman. It's actually the one we're going to be talking about first. And then another one kind of serves as a bit of it's the last film of a director, but he did it in such a way where he not lampoons, but it's like it talks about the movies he made before then. Both of
Which,
these
yeah,
movies are very inside baseball, for lack of a better word.
yeah. I mean, and I made a preface on my letterbox when I did the other one that you'd have to check out the other director's works before appreciating his last film. Um, so yeah,
But we'll get into both of those. And just before we do get into that, if you're listening on audio, give us 5 stars. We would appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. We do appreciate it very much. But with that out of the way, let's dig in, starting with Smiles of a Summer Night.
Sommarnattens leende. Ni är välkommen med eller utan bil.
This was directed by Ingmar Bergman, who is one of those directors where even if you have never seen one of his films, you know who he is. It was released in Sweden in 1955, but did not get a US release until 1960. And I'll be completely honest, finding an actual release date was very tricky. I go by this site called The Numbers, and The Numbers said it was 1960. However, Wikipedia said it was 1955 or 6.
that's where, yeah,
Is very tricky. So if we do get the date wrong, we do apologize. We do try and follow the US release date of every movie from 1960. So foreign movies were just dealt with in a different way back then. It's not like streaming where if Netflix picks it up, it's on our TVs ready to go right now. So we're
yeah,
playing by a different set of rules. We are trying our best here. But long story short, it tells the story of a young couple named one, the man is named Frederick and the woman is named Anne. They are married and well, as Russell described it to me privately, this is basically a Woody Allen film, but like if Ingmar
yeah.
Bergman.
It was funny. This is before I looked at the Wikipedia because it totally said which okay so uh okay, so Hugh Wheeler and Harold Prince, which opened on Broadway in '73, and as a Woody Allen film, a Midsummer Night's Sex Comedy. Um, so it was funny that I saw that after I told you about it. But just the relationships with characters and having side stories, comminglings between characters. I think this is right up Woody Allen's, uh, you know, pretty much his strength of what he has been known for. I mean, you look at all these like dinner party, like Mighty Aphrodite or like Melinda, Match Point, where you have like different relationships amongst characters that are already in relationships. So I did. That's the first thing I picked up on when I watched this.
This could make for a very interesting video series if I ever do a deep dive on Woody Allen like I did with Wes Anderson about a year or so ago. I've
Okay.
never been a huge fan of his work. I've only seen Annie Hall, and it really did nothing for me. And this
Oh,
has
Match Point's.
nothing to
Yeah.
do with anything that he may or may not have done in his personal life. Outside of
Yeah.
that, it has nothing to do with it. I watched Annie Hall once for the AFI project in 2020. I was depressed. I was fat. I was in a completely different mindset. So I need to
Yeah.
watch it again.
Yeah.
Regardless,
You'll like him though. Honestly, Match Point was fantastic. My wife and I's first movie that we saw together, surprise, surprise, was Blue Jasmine. a Woody Allen directed film that garnished an Oscar for Kate Blanchett. So yeah, I have seen a handful of his works. He's a good director, minus the obviously the scandalous side of his life, but I still think he's a good director.
Yeah, and well, back to Smiles of a Summer Night, like I talked about, this was directed by Ingmar Bergman, and like I said, you have probably not seen one of his movies, but you know who he is. He directed most famously The Seventh Seal, starring Max von Sydow. It's a movie I've always wanted to see, but I've just never had the chance to. It's got to be a priority one day. Long story short, Ingmar Bergman was one of those directors where artsy fartsy types put up on a pedestal of like the GOAT. And I just haven't seen much of his work to actually weigh in on the conversation. So as far as this one goes, just based on cursory glances at his letterboxd, this is a bit of a departure from him. From the looks of it, he makes like darker stuff. But here he basically is making a Woody Allen-esque rom-com before Woody Allen was getting into it.
Yeah,
And I just based on reading Russell's review earlier, I have a feeling he liked it way more than me. I liked the movie just fine, but
yeah.
I just got confused. Like and I guess that was the point, but I just at a certain point I was like, okay, somebody needs to explain to me like who all is like trying to get married and who
Yeah,
I got lost.
and that's where I was trying to explain it on my letterbox for people because of the fact that going into it, I think you have a little bit of an idea. But I did appreciate that, and we'll talk about it. This was actually the first film I've ever seen from Igmar Bergman, so this was my introduction to him. Obviously, like you said, Seventh Seal was one that's always like it's highly, highly recognized as like such a his masterpiece, and I've never seen it myself. And he's just somebody that but this was like I said I didn't know really what to expect after seeing the first film that we had on tap. This one definitely was the better of the two, I think. So
I mean,
we'll talk about it.
in terms of attempting to have a cohesive narrative, and trust me, we'll get to Testament of Orpheus when we get
Yeah,
there. But
it's amazing that that movie is actually straight. You could actually stream it on Max. It's crazy.
you can stream that on Max, but we had to
Yeah,
watch Smiles of a Summer Night on a barely
on you
functioning YouTube link.
on YouTube. Thank God for closed captioning, man. So
I
yeah,
legit, I
yeah,
had to warn Russell. I had to warn
yeah.
Russell, watch this on closed captions because there's no English to
Uh,
be found here.
No, because I mean, you have one that's this is Swedish, so you have that one, and then the next one we'll talk about is all French. So I'm like, oh man, but I always appreciate closed cat. I like the subtitles. I think it improves your reading skills, and the fact that I think it makes it more personal with the film. I think you have a little bit more of a intimacy with it because you're reading it as you're watching it too. So I kind of appreciate that.
Also, depending on what movie you're watching, you can actually like read the dialogue and maybe the sound mixing's not the best. So you're just like, "So what are they saying?" Turn on the
Yeah,
subtitles, be like, "Oh, that's what they're saying." So
yeah.
it like adds to it for me
For
personally.
No, for sure. Like I know Carthage and Flames was one where it was kind of off, where it was like English dubbed, and that kind of had it off putting. I'd rather have just had it in Italian. Um,
Well, that was the style of the time. Like a lot of those
yeah,
dubs is like, "We must get away."
yeah,
And, like the
like
mouths just never matched.
yeah. It's like give me the native tongue, man, and just put the subtitles on. I'd rather do it like that.
But I think the biggest compliment that I can give to Smiles is that I love how the movie mostly takes place in one location. Like it's in
Yeah,
this big house with this family, and it does get very confusing, the relationships, but I love
yeah.
movies and TV shows that take place in one location or in one day. Like I love Downton Abbey, and
Yeah.
this is definitely different from Downton Abbey, but I got a lot of that kind of vibes from it because you can tell just looking at this family that this is a very noble family. So I
Oh
appreciated
yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that was a series that I always want to watch. I watched the movie actually before the first movie before I watched the series, and then I started the series, and I probably was, I probably made it through a handful of seasons and episodes in season one, and I kind of just stopped watching it. I mean, I liked the acting in it, and I thought it was fantastic, and I did enjoy it. So it was one of those things where it had nothing to do with that. Just life got in the way, as it always seems to. It's something I need to go back to for sure. But yeah, he's a lawyer, and then his son Henrik is studying to be a priest, I guess. Um, and yeah, like to your point that you said that there are a lot of characters. Then you also have Petra, who is there. So it would be the Frederick Eggerman's like servant or maid, and then you have other people. So that it is kind of hard to follow. That's why I kind of like when I started getting introduced to all these characters, I was kind of writing stuff down so that I could kind of like family tree it almost. So then that way I knew what was going on. Um, but this
I
was interesting enough, though. Yeah,
it's it is the biggest problem with the movie though is that for me, I got lost like really bad at points, and I'm just like,
yeah.
thank God you wrote your review because I was just like reading it like the
Did you
maid.
understand it though? Yeah,
I did understand it, but
yeah,
movie shouldn't need me to read a guide and be like, it's like that movie Warcraft we got a few years ago, like the Duncan Jones movie where it's based on World of Warcraft. I don't need the entire backstory. Like I just need like enough to be like, okay, that's why they're fighting. Like I just need enough to understand why these people want to get together or they want this person to be away from another. That's all I need to
yeah.
know.
No, I get you, and like I said, I'm glad my review helped. But I enjoy, like I said, I did enjoy this enough. I gave it 4 stars on Letterbox. I did like it. Obviously, we'll talk about the Testament of Orpheus after, but I like this one fine. Once you get through the characters and kind of route through, who's who, and um with marriages and stuff like that, you think people are happy, but they aren't. Or one had like, obviously our main character has a son with, a former fling, the actress that they go to the play to go see, and Anne is jealous of. Um, but they don't really tell you it's Frederick's son, but you kind of figure it. Obviously, she named him Frederick, so I mean, it's not really a spoiler. You kind of figure that they had a fling before. Um, I do think it was kind of crazy though. Before they go to the play, they have to have a nap. I thought that was kind of strange.
Movie gets
It's like,
released
yeah,
late at night.
yeah, I'm gonna go to the movies, but I'm gonna take a nap before I do that. But outside of that, though, I like the story enough. Um, I don't want to get, I don't want to ruin it too much by like, navigating it. It's just one of those things where, um, so basically it comes to a head when Desiree's mother decides, or no, Desiree tells her mom to invite everybody to their like cottage house or whatever for the Midsummer Night, which obviously is a celebrated Swedish holiday because it's the shortest night of the year. And this is where all like the relationships and new relationships form. And I think that is where things get a little bit more interesting. There's a lot more at stake at this point. And yeah, I mean, I think that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. The fact that, okay, so we have all these other relationships going on outside of of everything, and then we're going to bring everybody in to like what you said in one specific household, and let's see what happens.
I think you gave it 4 stars. I think for me personally, on my scale, I'm going to give this a good rating. There is more than enough quality here to where you go like,
Oh,
okay, clearly like Ingmar Bergman made this, which means
yeah,
that it's going to at least look fantastic. And it does. And the acting is
yeah,
solid across the board. So there's enough going to where you can go, this is watchable, but you need to be paying attention to every single frame. Like it
yeah.
kind of reminded me not just of Woody Allen. Me personally, it kind of reminded me of a Billy Wilder movie where it's like
Okay,
starts out kind of low key and then it just gets so crazy and out of control. You're just it's gonna explode. And
yeah,
Billy
yeah,
Wilder, I mean, we all know who he is. Some like it hot, Sunset Boulevard. But it kind of reminded me of that weirdly enough.
yeah. No, I completely agree. It's one of those things where it goes from little to grandiose by the end of it. But once the players have come into the environment near the end of the about three quarters, a little bit over halfway through the movie. That's where things get a little bit more interesting, and you actually can kind of understand. You can kind of see and understand where characters are, allegiances are, loyalty is, or where love and lust are. And I like enough to where it kept me interested enough.
This was at the very least interesting in a good way, but I think this next one, I guess, could be interesting in a bad way. I don't know. We'll get to it, but it's called The Testament of Orpheus. This was directed by Jean Cocteau. I probably butchered that, and I'm sorry. And like Russ and like what we were alluding to, this is his last film. I believe he died a few sometime after this. I'm not 100% sure. But
Yeah, it said he died like 3 years after this film.
I was about to say 3 months. I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right, but it's three
Yeah,
years. But
yeah,
like I said, it tells the story of, well, Jean Cocteau reliving his films. Like he plays a character called the Poet, and yeah, he is basically led through all of his films. I get. This is just one of the most
yeah.
bizarre old little films that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah. Disclaimer, if you haven't seen this one, which I doubt you have, seek out this director's work prior to, see some of his stuff prior to, or all of his stuff prior to. Just because for, Ryan and I to come out watching his last film that deals with his career as a director, it's kind of like doing a disservice to him because of the fact that we're not familiar with him. And to me, it was like even if I was familiar with them, it's like these characters are coming. We have no relationship with these characters, Ryan or I, because there's no time invested in this. You know what I mean? Um, but like I had told you, I feel like this is like almost like a David Lynch type film, where you get random vomit sometimes, like where you get random. I mean, you get your art, but then you get a random, you just get random stuff, and then you're scratching your head like, what's going on? The scene that really got me that I really, really appreciated was when he ripped the flower apart and then picked it up and put it back together. Now, I thought that was beautifully shot because of the fact that you couldn't see anything being edited or like, you know what I mean, or like tampered with. It was natural, like he was putting the flower back together. I thought that was shot really, really beautifully.
That was actually like that I was gonna point that one out, but you beat me to it. That scene was beautiful as well. Just
Yeah,
like as close to special effects as you can get in this. And there were special effects around, but nothing like we have today. Like
yeah, no.
I could be like, oh, that was clearly like shot forward and then it's sped up in reverse or
Then,
slowed
yeah,
down, but it
yeah,
doesn't change the fact that it looks surreal and cool, and I kind of dug it. But
yeah,
the
for
rest
sure.
the rest of this movie is just too weird to live and too rare to die. Just my experience watching this. I'm looking at my phone, taking a note about something. The movie's going. I look down, I'm typing, and I look up, and there's a man wearing a horse head. Like the head of a paper like mache looking horse head. And he just like looks at me and
Yeah,
I'm just like, what? What?
yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah.
What am I?
It's unsettling. It was really weird. It was almost something you would expect to see like in like Donnie Darko with the bunny or something. It was
Oh,
really weird. You know what I mean? It
Frank,
was
yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, it just there was a lot of weird stuff in it. Then there's like teleportation of characters, like they can teleport or disappear too. Like this must be a thing with like his films prior to, I'm guessing. I don't know, but teleportation, like disappearing, like characters coming and fading away, were like a big thing in this film. Um, but like I told you, like the 8 minutes is a struggle, man. It's a struggle.
Yeah, like I said, this one in particular is very inside baseball in that if you're familiar with Jean Cocteau's work, then it's just going to be all Easter eggs like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember
Yeah,
that. And the
yeah,
thing with year or decade projects in this case is that we have no context most of the time about movies going in. So you gotta just
yeah.
go in blind and hope it's at least watchable. And this is like kinda not. The movie's 80 minutes long and it felt twice that because I was just sitting there like,
Yeah.
okay, they're wearing masks of faces on top of their face. I don't know.
Oh
Like
yeah, the
that was just
eyes or
it
whatever. The
was
eyes,
just
it was so dumb.
creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah, it was definitely weird and kind of, just what we had said prior. The 80 minutes is definitely a drag. So when I got your initial reaction to the Ingmar Bergman film, I knew I would probably like that a lot more than I would like this one just because of the fact that it was a struggle to watch 80 minutes. So then I was like, oh, this one, next one was an hour and 40 minutes. I'm like, I hope it's better. And like I said, I was pleasantly surprised with that one. So yeah.
That at least had a narrative. That at least was attempting to tell a story. Like here, it's just like I'm just
Yeah.
gonna riff on all of my films. Imagine if, like, say, John Carpenter did something like that. Just have like him being walked through and like some dude wearing a Michael Myers mask and be like, "You remember Ghosts of Mars? Not a ton of others do." Like something
Yeah.
dumb like that.
Something to or incorporate the thing or something in there. You know what I mean? Like you got to be or vampires. Like you have to be fluid with the director before you even go that route. And it was kind of one of those things where as a disclaimer, you have to watch Jean Cocteau's prior films or you can't appreciate it. I and that's why I even made that disclaimer in my letterbox thing. I was nice and I think I gave it 3 stars just because like or 2.5 just because of the fact I don't know the backstory of like any of his movies. So to me, to be able to fluidly judge a film based on a director's prior works that we obviously hadn't seen, just kind of it's kind of not fair. So that's kind of like an open 2.5. I don't think I would divvy too much away from it, even having seen all the movies later on down the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think on my scale, I'm gonna say the movie's pretty forgettable. I'm not going full
Yeah.
horror because there is effort put forth into this, and
Oh, 100%.
clearly Jean Cocteau, just from looking at him, is like, okay, this guy clearly like he's got ideas and
Yeah.
this feels very much like a swan song. So we're coming in like not at the ground floor. So the context of this is especially important with this one. So I feel like kind of similar with Ingmar Bergman, I need more research and like if I like watch like say the original Orpheus and then go back and watch this and be like, okay, that's what he was trying to go, then I will amend my rating. But I went into it completely blind and this was the result, which is, I mean, with a
Yeah.
decade project like this, unless you've seen it like elsewhere, then like you don't have a ton of context, so you just gotta walk into it and like it's hope it's entertaining, and this one just rolled snake eyes.
A lot more consistency and fluency in our and seeing these films because you'll have seen the director's works leading up to what I mean. This is just prior to where we're at, and obviously you can't see his works that were already prior to if you're in the 60s right now. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah. But this is a weird double feature. I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of any of these movies? If you have seen them, let us know in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And in a couple weeks' time, I can assure you we're going to be moving on to movies you've definitely heard of from the 60s. And let me just pull up the list now because the very next movie we're going to be covering is a little movie you may have heard of called Psycho. And no, I'm not talking about the Van Sant one that I had Russell on for last year's Scary Mania. I'm talking about the OG, the classic, like the one you've heard of. So we're going to be doing that, and then we're going to be doing a Jean-Luc Godard film called Breathless, which I've been reliably informed is very good. So we're
yeah,
moving on to more recognizable stuff in a few weeks' time. But Russell, it's a privilege to do this show with you. Thank you so much for doing it with me. What have you
yeah.
got coming up?
We are already filmed. Chance and I already did the top 20 performance of 2024. So we've already done that, and we've already recorded the top 10 movies of 2024. So those will be out on YouTube and our respectively. And then we're still in the process of trying to shoot David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. I just haven't got around to watching it. I started it today. And just want to I want to be fair to this one. I want to let this one breathe. You know what I mean? Before we do it, because I know it is. I enjoyed it. I've seen it a couple times. I just want to like enjoy it, and just really try to take it in Lynch's world here. So we got that coming down the pike too. And then after that, I don't know what we're gonna do, but we'll have something interesting as we near our 200th episode, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, their Facebook group and YouTube channel are in the description. Go give them a subscribe. They do deserve it. And as far as this channel goes, I have my own David Lynch project ongoing. The Elephant Man review dropped a couple days ago. I'm going to be watching Wild at Heart for the first time in the coming days, and I have no knowledge of that whatsoever, so I've been reliably informed it's very good, so fingers crossed on that one. But that is all for us. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. For Russell, my name is Ryan Gam. We will see you all in the next one. Y'all take care.